Hi guys, I'm Haoran, the second year PhD student from Accounting and Finance School Management. Today I will share something about how to use Eikon Patient API for your finance research. In today's course, we'll cover three parts. In the first part, we'll talk about why we need Patient Eikon API. The second part is I will provide a quick start guide for you to set up Eikon Patient API in your computer. In the last part, I will provide some coding examples so that you can be familiar with Patient Eikon API and facilitate your research. Here, let's have a look at why we need Eikon Data API. This picture is from the Revelative website. We will not discuss them in details, so we just have a look at some keywords. The first word is directly. The second word is flexible. The last word is Python. So in general, via Eikon Data API, we can conduct direct and flexible quantitative research in finance. So you may think this description is very abstract. So how can we touch or feel about Eikon Data API? Here is a quick start guide. There are two options. In the first option, there are three steps. In the first step, we need to set up a patient environment. Here I recommend you to use Anaconda. From my perspective, it is the world's most popular open source patient distribution platform. And I also provide a download link. You can go to this link and download the Anaconda and install it. After you have installed the Anaconda, you can apply for a Revelative workspace. The University Bus Library provides a very detailed instruction page where you can find some information about how to apply for an account and install the Revelative workspace. After the two steps, we move to the last step where you need to create an app key for your application, and you also need to install the patient library for your Eikon Data API. This is the first option. After slide sharing, I will show you how to conduct some practical steps. There are another option 2 is provided by Revelative, where you do not need to set up an Eikon Data API or set up a patient environment. You can just apply for an account for Revelative workspace, and then you will go to a function in the workspace called codebook and use it to collect data. In the last part, I will share some useful coding examples for you to be familiar with Eikon Data API, and I will use Jupyter Notebook to conduct this research. So here is the sharing about the slides. We'll move to our practical steps. First of all, let's have a look at the patient environment. We can go to the Anaconda website like this. We just copy the download link and search it, use Google. Okay, here is the website of official website of Anaconda. You can just click the download option to download this software in your computer and install it step by step. It's very easy and quick. After you have installed the Anaconda software, you can find it here. You may find we have several components about Anaconda. The first component is the page provided by Anaconda called Anaconda Navigate. We click it. The second component is about console provided by Anaconda, and also we have Jupyter Notebook. It is today's focus. Then we also have a IDE called Spider, which is very similar to Stata. In Stata is do file. You can write a similar file here. We can also click it. Okay, now we open the navigate page. I will share something about Anaconda. We click the environments to explain its function. Anaconda is very useful for Python coding because you can automatically install some very useful statistical packages written by Python. If we compare Python to be a language, these packages are very useful tools for you to conduct your research, right? We can use these tools for our research objectives. And Anaconda also provides some very useful functions, such as we all know, Python has different versions, such as 3.6, 3.7, or 3.8. So we can set up different environment with different Python options, and you can conduct your distinct research in different environment. And you can also use this page to manage your Python packages. So this is the end about Anaconda Navigate. Then we move to the Spider. Here is my page. As you can see, in Spider, we call it IDE, right? Just like do file in Stata, you can write codes here and conduct your quantitative research. But in today's class, we will not talk about Spider. We will mainly use Jupyter Notebook. Just click this icon and you can enter the Jupyter Notebook. Okay. Now we enter the interface of Jupyter Notebook. You just click a new Python 3. You can enter an IDE for you to write codes and write loads. And I have already writing some scripts use Python. I will share it in today's class. Okay. Well, this is my code's examples. As you can see, the Jupyter Notebook not only for you to write codes, but also it can store some temporary results. Here you can see it. And most importantly, you can write some useful information for your co-author or supervisor to understand, right? So Jupyter Notebook is much more convenient for you to write something like this, right? After we have already complete the first step, we can move to our second step about Revelative Workspace. You can just double click it. It may need some time. Okay. Here you just input your Revelative account you have applied for, and you also input your password to log in. Let's wait for some seconds. Okay. Now we enter this page. If you see this page, it means you have successfully installed Revelative Workspace. As we see in previous slides, we need to set up Eikon Data API application, right? Here is the location of this function. You just click the app lib, and then you move to developer and find a function called app key generator. You just click open, and here you can use a name such as test, right? And you choose Eikon Data API, and you click register this new app and click OK. Because I have already set up an Eikon API key, so I cannot register it again. If you are new to Eikon Data API, you can set up a new key like me. So right here, we have already completed several steps for us to use the Eikon Data API. Then we can move to Jupyter Notebooks to install the Python Eikon library and conduct our research, right? We also talk about the second option about Eikon Data API. Just provide in the same space. Click the app lib, go to develop, and here is a function called codebook. You just click open. I do not recommend you to use this function, as we can see now it's very slow to load, right? So it's not convenient. Let's move to our research focus about use Jupyter Notebook in your computer. Okay, now we share something about the Python codes. As we talked previously, we already run the Revelative workspace, set up an Eikon API, and we also set up Python environment, and Python Eikon library is installed. If you load, here is the command pipe install Eikon. You can input here, and you will automatically set up an Python Eikon library. There are other two options for you to input this command. First is here. You can click Anaconda promote. Then you key pipe install Eikon. Beautiful, right? You have already installed it. Another option is here. You key cmd and use this console to pipe install Eikon. As you can see, it also works here, right? We close it. Now we move to our Jupyter Notebook. Because we have already set up a Python Eikon Data API, now we need to import it. We import Eikon as EK. Why we not use Eikon here? Because we do not want to, every time we need to write Eikon, EIK when it's too long, right? We just, for short, use EK. So you need to connect to the Python Eikon API. You can use this function ek.setAppKey. This key is copied from your Revelative workspace. You can see this is the code book provided by Revelative, but its memory and storage is limited, so we do not recommend you to use this function. We just close it. Here is the app key. You just copy it, and you can paste it here, and then you can connect to Eikon. Then you will also to import some other useful packages such as pandas and numpy and matplotlib for interactive plotting, right? Today I will not discuss about how to use Python for coding, so this is just for illustration. Then you may ask how to get data by Eikon API. And here I provide a link for Eikon API website where it provides very detailed instructions and some documents and tutorials. I think you may find them interesting. And the most important function we use to get data is this function, get data. Very straightforward, right? And this function has three important parameters. The first is instruments. Let's say stock code or mutual fund code or other symbols to represent an instrument. The fields is about some metrics or some kind of data you need, such as accounting data and price data and some time series information. Here is parameters. What does this mean? Such as if you want to download the price data of some kind of stocks, you may need to provide the start date and end date, right, for the time series information. This is parameters. And you may say this is from some document. If we do not want to see a document, how can we use this information in Jupyter Notebook? Here is a function. You can just input help ek.getData. You may find some help information, just the same as the above page, right? Then we will share about how to get data. Here are some examples. The first is to get historical data of stocks. The second is to get historical data of mutual funds. First, we'll talk about stock data, and this is the command and function. You can just use ek.getData and input the instruments such as Apple, and this is the fields we will need: price close date and the price close, and we execute this function and this command, we can get the following results. Many of you may ask about, I do not remember the command, or I'm not familiar with Eikon. How can we write this kind of this command, right? Here, Revelative provide us a very useful function. You click applib develop. Here is a function called code creator. You just click open. You can search instruments and search data items, such as we need Apple, and we may need close price, right? You just click close. There's because my operating system is Chinese, so here the category and the name is in Chinese. If your system is English, it will present some English words. So you will find the right close category. Here it is. You just click add. You will find the Python code here, and you can use it. Use the copy to clipboard to copy it. Right, so you can automatically copy the command from Revelative, right? Here I will say something about the category. There are different metrics or categories about instruments, stock data, mutual fund data. It depends on your research aim. You can search the data you need, and here's some about company behaviors, and this is time series, price and volumes, and so on. So let's exploit it in your computer. So now we move to the Jupyter Notebook. See a last thing. You may find this command copied from Revelative is not succinct, right? So here I write another command which is more direct and more convenient for you to understand. Here is the command. You can execute it to get the same information about Apple closing price, right? It's the same. Then you may think is other functions about this kind of data? Yes. Here Eikon provide a function called get time series. You can get the price data about Apple from the start date end date. Here is another usage about get time series. Sometimes you may need a bunch of stocks, right? You can use a Python list to store this stock, and you use the same Eikon API function to get the information you need. Here is another thing I need to mention. If you look at the code, you may find it is not look like the Nasdaq ticker or other information we familiar with, right? Here is a function provided by Eikon for you to understand why this happens. Okay, let's move here. Here is a function provided by Eikon called get symbology, right? You use this function, you can convert some type of symbol, such as ticker, to another symbol type you want. For example, here I convert the ticker to leap ID. You can also from symbol type like ticker to here is the help information such as the RIC, right? The RIC is a default symbol used by Revolution workspace. So we move to the About page. We already talked about get data, get time series about price, right? We can also use Eikon to get some fundamental data about accounting, such as revenue, gross profit, like this. Here is a description about the parameters. The scale 6 means the scale is in millions, and frequency is fiscal year, currency is euro, the default is dollars, and these two parameters define we get the last 3 years, right? Some of you may find an interesting question is we input the instruments or we input the code to get the data, right? But as for research, sometimes we may download thousands stocks or thousands mutual funds from Morningstar or CISP, right? CISP. And I will use an example in mutual fund data for you to understand. For mutual fund performance data, we will also provide an example about more than one or other sources for you to facilitate your research. Here, very similar, we use Eikon.get data to get this mutual fund ruling performance. And here are parameters about interval. We use quarterly, and the ruling time frame we use 1 year. Finally, you can get this mutual funds ruling performance in the past year. You can see this information. And I will move to Revolution workspace to illustrate. We will search mutual fund. Sorry, we move to Eikon API to copy this code. Yes, we can find this fund, right? We click it. In mutual fund, you will find very useful information in this category called LEAP funds. And Revolution provides very useful information about ruling performance. Here you can set up parameters, and this is frequency. You can choose monthly, and here is the time schedule. You can use 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, or start in settlement. You can just click it. And other functions like price, right? And most importantly, you may be interested is about the holdings. But here is a problem with interest. We will talk later. Okay, this is just one fund. You can also use this function to get a bunch of mutual funds. Here I also provide an example. Right. Then you may ask, if we have an Excel from Morningstar or Watts, how can we get the data from Refinitiv? Here I provide a Python function called pandas.read Excel. This is the absolute path of this Excel name, and this is the sheet name for you to store the data, and you can read it as follows. This is RSIN code for mutual funds, about 800. And then you use this function. You can get the list for Refinitiv workspace to understand, or Eikon API to understand. This is the list for the mutual funds, and then you can, here is the list for the mutual funds. Then you can use this function to get the ruling performance for over 700 mutual funds. Data is here. So here is a coding skill I want to share. Sometimes we may need to share our code to our supervisors or our co-authors. If you use the absolute path of your file, they download your code, may need to change it because your co-author may store your code in another place, so they must to change it, right? You can use this command to avoid this question, and you can use os.get current work dictionary, and you can automatically search the Excel, and you can use the same function to read the mutual funds code. Finally, you can get the same information about the mutual fund ruling performance. A lot of questions is if some of you may not be interested about Python, you want to use Stata or R to process your data, right? You can download this data to your computer in Excel. Here is a function, dataframe.toExcel, and this is the Excel name, and index is false because you look here, you will find there are some numbers. We do not want to keep these, so we just use this function to store the data in our computer. Then I will share a lot of function about Eikon data API is mutual fund holding data. We can also use the same function. Here is the code. Here is the some metrics such as holding name, fund number of shares, or shares changed, right? And here is the information. There is a problem about Eikon data API is for mutual fund holding, it doesn't provide historical data. It just provides the up-to-date holding data. I have already sent some emails to Eikon to ask for help, but unfortunately, they refuse to modify this function, and this question is also pointed out by other scholars. I hope in near future they can provide a more complete function about mutual fund holding data. So here we already talk about how to set up Eikon Data API environment and how to use function to get data from Eikon, you may ask, how can we integrate the data into our research? And I will share a research about my project called portfolio optimization. Here is a very complex mathematical expression. I will not discuss it. If you are interested, you can have a look at it. We will step by step talk how can we access Eikon data to this research. Here, assume we need these instruments, including Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and we use the data start date, end date, and we can use Eikon Data API to get all the price data for these instruments. Or here is a coding skill is we use a for loop to get the data because in Eikon API there is a limit for each API get just this function. So we use a for loop. We can avoid the limitation about the data size. Then we can have a look at about the first 5 rows, final 5 rows, and we can also calculate the return of these instruments, and we can calculate its daily mean returns, annualized mean returns, or daily volatilities and annualized volatilities. And we can also define a Python function to calculate portfolio volatility and set up the boundary and the condition we need to meet in conducting our portfolio. Then we use a Python function. We can get the outputs for a minimum variance portfolio, and we can get result here. So this is a very easy and short example about how to integrate Eikon data into your research. You can also use Eikon Data API for other research aims, such as time series analysis with machine learning and financial markets sentiment analysis, where you can access news articles data of relative from this API. So this is the end of our sharing about how to use Eikon Data API for your finance research in Python. If you have any questions, you can contact me at any time. I hope you like today's sharing. Thank you. Have a nice day and happy with Eikon exploration. Thank you.